Welcome to the Law of Attraction Tribe. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith. I went from being a miserable corporate employee to becoming a podcaster, app creator, and best-selling author, all through the power of the Law of Attraction. So join me for bite-sized episodes where I simplify the manifestation process and help you manifest a life you don't need a vacation from. So buckle up, keep an open mind, and get ready to create your dream reality. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. So I just want to remind you that we have a new section for kids and parents in the Manifest It Now app. So this is correlating with each podcast episode in our new podcast called Manifest Magic for kids, teens, and parents, where we're creating activities for kids to do that go along with each episode. So it makes it really fun and it helps them like immerse the law of attraction into their life in a way that's going to be easy and fun and relatable for kids. So you can download the Manifest It Now app and that section is included. Now on today's show, I am interviewing David Strickel. So he has spent a lifetime going deep into his inner wisdom, which he believes all humans possess, but rarely fully access. I agree with that completely. And he now refers to this as the stream. The name seemed perfect because the consciousness is pure source that flows through him and offers so much. David's mission is to share this with humanity, and he will dedicate the rest of his human journey to sharing this with others. In doing so, he launched his mindset practice, Tya, for Trust Your Abundance. Tya is the practical application of the stream's teachings, and we're going to learn about it today. So stick around and let's hear from David. David, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
I am very intrigued. I want to know more about you. I know you're a channeler. Can you let me know, have you always been that way? How did that come about? Because I'm always curious when I hear people are able to channel, if this is something you've had since you were a child or how it all came about. Maybe you can give us some background.
It is something that I've had since I was a child. I think we all have some version of it in us. We all have what I call source energy in us, and that's really what it is. I think the difference for me is that I had a set of parents that were very disconnected as I was a child, when I was a child. So I never learned to tune it out. I think we all have it, but we learn to tune it out. Church tells us to tune it out, parents, culture, tradition, all these things. And I just wasn't exposed to a lot of those things very early on. And my parents were going through a divorce. My father left when I was 6. My mother didn't really want to be a parent after that. And so early childhood, even to age 6, they were sort of already broken. And I was the child that was supposed to fix the marriage, and I didn't. So they sort of ignored me. And so I really came to rely on the inner voice. And then as I got older, I just started questioning everything. I would hear things being told to me, and I would really think very differently than what I was being told to think. And it didn't work very well for me in school or Sunday school or anywhere else. It really kept me in trouble. But somehow I managed my own well-being, even though I was kind of a rebel with all of that stuff. So yeah, it's been with me my whole life. I did not know what it was. I will zoom up a little bit to age 14, which was 1982 for me. I remember describing what we call the law of attraction in great detail to my older brother, Doug, telling him that even though we were poor and our cousins were all wealthy and our half sister was certainly upper middle class, and we were around all of these material things, that we could have that too, or be, or do anything essentially, because it's all in our mind and our mindset. And I remember just telling him in such great detail. It was like I was channeling then, and I didn't realize it. And my brother was very Christian. So he said, I don't know what that is. You need to go pray. And so, we both turned out okay in life. We're both into our 50s now. We turned out okay in life, but in very different paths. But that's been with me. And so by the time I was a teenager and I understood this so well, even though I lived in a single parent minimum wage household, I lived like one of the rich kids in town. I had a brand new car and nice clothes. I always had stuff showing up, money showing up when I really needed it. And my life has just been that way. Now, jump up into my 30s, I was in a corporate setting. I was making a lot of money, even though I shouldn't have been because I didn't have a formal education. So I've always sort of broken the odds with everything and just manifested. And it was very material focused though. And I got into my early 40s and realized that, wow, I've manifested all these material things. I'm living the life of what I would have thought as a child was a rich person, big house, fancy cars, all that stuff. And there's still something missing. There's a big something missing. And I started meditating around that time. And when I started meditating in 2010, I had what is called a Kundalini awakening. And this energy erupted at the base of my spine and sort of electrified me. And what we now call the stream really stepped forward. And I really had realized that I was allowing the conscious creation of material things, part of that message to flow, but I was suppressing the rest of it. So when I had this awakening experience, the suppression of all of it stopped and sort of the understanding of the entire universe showed up. By this time, I had already had a psychic tell me that I was a channel and that I had this gift of sharing and that I was in the world for that and all of this stuff that I didn't want any part of. I really wanted to keep all that hidden. I didn't want to be a weird spiritual woo woo person back then. I was really judgmental of all of that. But I really came to terms with that in my 40s. After this Kundalini awakening, I really came to terms with it. Became very much public about it and okay with it, and really allowing it to impact my entire life. And the last frontier for me was really around the time I turned 50. I decided to quit my high paying corporate job and just do this full time. And by that time, I had not only come to terms with being a channel, I had taught myself to write it and then speak it. And I did teach myself. It wasn't some miraculous thing that came upon me and suddenly it started flowing. If you follow Abraham Hicks, Esther's story is very much like that.
Uh-huh.
Mine wasn't like that. I intentionally came to understand that, okay, this is what I am and this is what I'm here to do. But it's not going to just happen. I'm going to need to teach myself to do this. And I did. And it took years to do it. So in 2017, I started the Stream of David podcast. And the very first time I channeled for anyone other than myself was on the podcast. It's still out. I still have the podcast. It's still out there. So my whole channeling journey is chronicled in my podcast. And since that time, I've quit my job. I've written 2 books. I've really allowed this to be my full-time thing. And I've created a mindset practice around the teachings because one of the first questions I asked when it became more conversational is, well, why do I need to come and channel? I think Esther Hicks is great. Abraham's wonderful. Why do we need another one of those? And the message was very clear. There's not going to be another Abraham. That's perfection the way that it is. It serves the audience that's aligned with it. There doesn't need to be another Abraham. You need to disconnect from all of that and you need to let this be its own thing. And I did that. I now have not listened to Abraham in years simply because I don't want to copy that. I wanted to do something
Mhm.
different. That was my intentionality. And I will tell you that my frustration with a lot of the teachings was, how do I make this my way of life? I understand the concept, but how do I employ it as my way of life? And that's where Tya came from. And that's what I teach today as a Tya practice, which is the practical application of the stream's teachings. And the stream is just source consciousness.
So it's a way of living, like
If
people
it's a
can
chosen way
learn.
of living, it's a belief system
Okay.
like every other belief
Mhm.
system that we've created. But my intentionality is to take all of what I call the matrix, the rules. You're supposed to
Mhm.
behave like this and do this and do that. Sometimes I'll be in a social setting and somebody will find out what I do and I'll swear, or I'll have a drink in my hand. Oh my God. Well, I'm not a religious leader. I'm a human being living a imperfect human life, doing all the fun human stuff, swearing and drinking apparently. And that's me, but then the stream is something different. And I'm not just putting myself out there as a full-time channel and I'm channeling source all the time and I'm living this perfect life at all. I think the value in what I offer is, here's the stream. This is, ask them anything you want. Nothing's off limits. Here's this great clarity about answers everything in life. And then here's the human David applying it in my life, for better or worse, and trial and error of making this my way of life. And so I created the mindset practice called Tya, but it doesn't have rules, judgment, worship, or any of those things. It really is aligning your life with universal law.
Oh my gosh, I resonate so much with a lot of the things you said. I personally didn't grow up in going to church at all. And as a kid, that was very embarrassing for me because all my friends, went to church. But I look back at that and I always wonder, is that what made me open-minded enough to get into everything that I'm into now? Would I have been blocked off from that? So I just think it's interesting. And then I was in the corporate world as well. And when I first got started with Law of Attraction Tribe, my biggest fear was that someone was going to find out that I worked with. Like I was so, like kind of embarrassed because I'm like, they're going to think I'm crazy or something. And it's just interesting um, how the journey sort of unfolds. But I'm absolutely fascinated by this. And I mean, can you start channeling now? Are we
Sure.
able to go into the stream?
Yes. Yes, we can. So what we do to do that is I will be quiet for a moment. I will do some breath work. I invite you and everyone else interacting, even if you're listening to this or watching this in the future, it doesn't matter, to do this meditation together and set the intention to receive what you want or need from the stream, and you will. And it's going to take just a moment, and they will announce themselves when they are here. And it's not really a they, that's just the language that we use so that you know that you're talking to source and not David. And I will say, sometimes people get really off put by saying, well, who does he think he is channeling source? We all channel source. We
Hmm.
all have source within us. I think a lot of channelers that have come along have said that it's a group of entities or it's something else because they weren't quite ready to say that it's source. I do believe that all channels that are authentically channeling, and I just assume they are channeling source, and they're just labeling it as something maybe a little different. But the core of it is source, because we are human beings. We're in 3D reality. Source is sort of like our Wi-Fi connection. That's what we're getting everything through. So when I asked for a name, notice that a lot of channels use like a male name, and I've never experienced this anything as human-like or gendered at all. And that's where we came up with the stream. It's a stream of consciousness. It's not, a male name or a female name or anything like that. Let's just call it the stream, and it's the stream of David, just because I'm David. So we're going to meditate. We're going to bring this in. We're going to set an intention for a positive interaction that's expansive. And then they will say, we are here. And then you just take off and ask whatever you want.
Okay. Sounds good.
I do have to breathe to do it. So
Yeah.
we are here.
Okay. So let's see. I'm trying to think of what I should ask now. Okay. One question that I get a lot from my listeners is about time, which I think is a human construct, but should we be placing time limits on our manifestations? Why do some things manifest quickly for some, and then for others, it seems like it takes years and years and years? What's the deal with time?
You are in a physical experience where you are experiencing this in a linear fashion, and of course the measurement of time is absolutely something that you've created for yourselves, and it is based on the movement of the earth and things of this nature. So in your creation of the concept of time, you are creating these things like goals and expectations that are bound to a time frame. But the energetic realm is not linear. It is not moving in a linear experience the way that you were experiencing Earth. So when you are wanting something to manifest and you are having an expectation of a time frame, that can truly go either way for you. Because if the belief is that it will show up in a certain amount of time, and you're in what you might call an allowing state, meaning that you are simply comfortable with the belief that it's going to show up rapidly, and you are not in the vibration of need for it, you are simply in that high vibration of appreciation of the process, you can manifest very quickly. The time buffer of manifestation is all about your belief system. And there is value in that, however, because a lot of the things that you want, you need that buffer of time or that linear experience to create the very best version of it. This is why polarity exists. And if you look at your creations, the things that you are very confident in your ability to create, you don't even think about them, you create on autopilot. Perhaps in your life, friendships come very easily, and perhaps good health comes very easily, and you are creating that continually over and over again for yourselves because your belief system supports it. But then perhaps finances don't come as easily. So money is something that is more difficult in this scenario. And the reason that it's more difficult is because that you've allowed your belief system to develop in such a way that money is hard to come by. And your belief system supports that. Your belief system is always going to override whatever you're wanting in the moment, because you can read a book and you can listen to a podcast or watch a YouTube video and in the moment align with the teachings and feel very good that this is the thing that's going to change your life, that this is the thing that's really going to allow you to manifest. And in that moment, you are believing your dreams, you're essentially trusting your abundance. And in that vibration of trust, the universe is delivering on that. The universe only answers yes to everything. The universe is never creating on your behalf, ever. It is never looking at you and saying that you deserve or do not deserve or are worthy of or should have this because you're a good person or any of those things. It is simply answering yes, because you did not come to this world to just manifest every single thing that you want without any challenges. You came for the challenges as much as you came for the desires, the duality of your world. The challenges of your world are actually the things that expand your consciousness. You're here for that. You are here for the expansion of consciousness experience, which includes the things that your ego discerns as desires. And there, you are of earth. So there are certainly elements of earth that you all appreciate very much, things that you desire to experience while you're here. But in order to reach those desires, you're also moving through the lower vibration manifestations of challenges. You have the storms that come through your lives, you have the daily challenges to solve. And those challenges and those storms have widely been demonized by humanity. Many of you are often saying that you can't wait to get to a place where it's utopian in nature, where you all agree about everything all the time. You want for nothing. Everything that you want just shows up automatically. And you learn about the law of attraction and you create a belief early on in this journey that your life is going to be that. And then it doesn't show up that way. You have challenges in learning to utilize this because your belief system is something that runs on autopilot because you've spent a lifetime creating it. You're not just going to flip a switch and suddenly change that belief system. It's ingrained in you. It's your subconscious mind. It's your default vibration. So your life is a reflection of your default vibration, not your desires. So when you have something that's taking a long time to manifest that you really want, because you really want it and because you've placed so much weight on the manifestation of it, that's why it's taking so long to manifest. Because when you're in high vibration, you're believing it, you're trusting it, it's coming. But then you default back to your old mindset and you're canceling out that manifestation because you're up here, you're believing, you're trusting the universe is saying, yes, we are delivering this to you, and then your vibration drops a little bit and it starts to unravel. Or perhaps you've even manifested a version of it and you think finally the money's coming in. And then all of a sudden the well stops, the tap stops. And you think, what was I doing? I was manifesting this. Everything was going great. I don't recall doing anything specific. And now it stopped again. What am I doing wrong? This is very common in this journey. That is because your vibration dropped and your default lost some of that ability to trust. But what's really happening is the process of creation is what we guide you to focus upon, not just the law of attraction, because the process of creation includes these spin outs, includes these dips, includes these unravelings of the things that you deem important. But every time something unravels, that's presenting an opportunity to you to better ready yourself for it or make a better product. Think in terms of inventions. Think in terms of the devices that you all use. If you've ever studied the invention of the Apple computer, for instance, how many times that spun out and how many times that company almost went out of business and how many times their inventions did not work until finally at last they did consistently and then they were considered among the best. That time frame of up and down creation of a new idea, this is the best thing ever, we've finally figured this out, this is really going to be a great product, and then it all unravels and it doesn't work the way that's intended. But you have two choices when that happens in your creation process. You can give up and quit. There is no judgment from us for any of your actions, certainly not that, and move on to something else. Or you can simply continue the process of creation, noticing what's available to you in that lower vibration. What isn't working? What's stuck in the belief system? What's not working in the creation of whatever it is that you can better create in the next iteration? So your next iteration is you raise your vibration in simple appreciation of the process. And then all of a sudden, all of the clarity arrives in that higher vibrational state of how your creation can be made better. And then you're creating a better version of what you're creating. This is how you're all created. Your human form was created this way. That's what evolution is, always becoming a better version of yourselves, always becoming a better physical version of yourselves, always becoming a wiser version of yourselves, but never reaching perfection, because perfection is not the goal in any physical environment. It's the experience of creation. That's why you're here. So those of you that are figuring out law of attraction, you're really figuring out conscious creation. Law of attraction is popular terminology that gets the point across, but conscious creation is more than just attraction or the conscious part, because all creation begins as consciousness, it all begins as thought, but it's absolutely impacted by polarity. This polarity is the thing that's unraveling your manifestations, and it's just part of the creative process.
Is there a great awakening that is happening right now where everyone on the planet is expanding their consciousness? Are we in this period of like spiritual transformation as a whole, or is that just kind of like things we're making up in our head when we see that we're all communicating on social media and it seems like we're waking up to a lot of things that maybe we were closed off to before?
The answer to that is both, because the things that you're making up in your head become your reality. So more and more of you are, for your terminology, making up in your head that you're expanding your consciousness beyond 3D, that you are exiting the matrix, that you are creating new earth, all of this terminology that you commonly use. We were speaking to all of you that follow this type of teaching. You are creating that. You're making it up in your head, but you're also creating that as a reality. So, what is happening for humanity, if you want to look at it from a very rational 3D perspective, is you're becoming wiser versions of yourselves. You are creating technology that's allowing you to communicate in 3D the way that you communicate in your eternal consciousness state. You're a collective consciousness. You are a collective of Earth. You're a collective of humanity. You're a collective of your town, your gender, your race, your belief system. All of you have all of these micro collective consciousnesses going on, and throughout this collectiveness, you all do communicate, but your 3D world has cut you off from your natural state of communication. You are taught to pay attention to your device more than one another. So that's created this duality. But in that duality, you are able to pinpoint like minded beings and get together and communicate in ways that you've never been able to do in recorded history, in your history. You've never been able to get together like this and communicate this way. This is relatively new, very new in your world to be able to do this. So you're getting together, and what you're doing is exploring conscious creation, which is how the entire universe is created. You're understanding what is human construct and what may not be human construct like never before. So, in your understanding of these things, you're looking at your matrix of beliefs and you're questioning those things like you've never questioned before. You are certainly questioning more than your parents did, and they certainly questioned more than their parents did. And in the youngest generation that is coming forth now, you see plenty of evidence of how they question more than anyone. They don't even want to be bound by gender anymore. So all of these human constructs are starting to be questioned. And in your questioning of them with judgment, you actually strengthen them. So anything that you judge, anything that you look upon and say that's wrong, that should not be, you're actually feeding it. And you see evidence of that. You see that with war and famine and genocide and all of these things that you all agree that you don't want, yet they keep occurring because your demonization of them. So when you're coming to understand conscious creation, and this is why this is such an interesting time for you on planet Earth, you are exiting the matrix because you're coming to understand that the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you're going to get it. And that includes every single element of your world. So, from a conscious creation perspective, you can't ignore what's going on in your world because you've created so many modalities of communication. There was a time where you were bound to your village and its belief system, and that worked. But then you started getting beyond your villages. You created modes of transportation and then communication. And now you have this ability to communicate globally. That could certainly create more strife in your world because you're seeing the very worst of everything. And there are many eyes glued to that. But many of you are coming to understand that the more you pay attention to that, the more you're bringing that into your world. And not only that, the more you're fueling that for the ones that you wish would not experience it. So now you're at this turning point where what do we do with conscious creation? Where we guide you, that's a bit unique in our teachings and what David is sharing, is that instead of trying to ignore it, which you cannot do, and instead of creating more of it through your damnation of it, find our perspective of it, which is a perspective of deep understanding, which we often label as appreciation. When we say appreciate war and famine and injustice, many of you will be turned off by that. We are not speaking of celebration. We're speaking of deep understanding, such deep understanding of your world's problems and your own problems that you no longer fear nor judge. That's the sweet spot of healing. And that goes for attracting wealth and material things as much as healing your life's transgressors and the things that create trauma for you. It all works the same. And certainly when you are in a joyous state of appreciation of all that is, you have truly moved yourself out of what you call 3D into what you may call 5D or more utopian experience, understanding that the world you are inhabiting right now, you came here by choice. Your soul very much wanted to have the exact experience that you were having. It's your ego that might be in opposition of that. Your ego might be saying, I want to be wealthier, I want to be younger, I want to be more beautiful, I want to be more whatever the matrix tells you that you're supposed to be, but that's just a belief system. So
So
as
there
you're
might be some suffering that we experience because we chose that experience to help expand our consciousness.
indeed, all suffering is a product of that. All of it is. And the suffering part is actually your judgment of the experience more than the experience itself, because there are certainly things that you experience that you would not wish upon anyone else that you can look at very clearly and say, if I had not experienced that, I would not have also experienced this. And that really catapulted me to a different vibration. So I'm grateful for that thing that happened to me. It's not traumatic. It's not painful. There is no suffering in it anymore. I can now appreciate it. You all have some example of that because that is a more source like perspective. And again, source exists in all of you. We flow to all of you. So, in that perspective of that one thing, you can take that and layer that on everything in your lifetime. And where we guide you with this, if you are very new to these teachings, not to try to apply it to everything at once and not to try to apply it to the very worst things that you've experienced or witnessed, because that is a recipe for failure. Because you need to move vibrationally toward it, and you need to be easy about the time frame. You started this interaction speaking of time frame, that creative time frame, that linear time frame that you're all operating in. That's where the expansion of consciousness happens. The trial and error, the I am going to try to figure this out. I'm going to try to apply the teachings of the stream in this example to appreciation of childhood trauma, for example. And perhaps I can gain some appreciation on this topic. I'm not yet quite there on that topic. The key is to know that it's available to you and don't rush yourself in trying to do it. Know that it's available. Know that healing anything in your life is available because you created it all consciously. Your soul created it all. You had a soul desire to come and experience the exact point of entry that you experienced. And then everything that you did from that point of entry, meaning your point of conception, was a chance opportunity for your soul combined with your human consciousness, your ego, to create this expansive journey. And there is much expansion offered in a difficult journey. Your matrix of beliefs operates exactly in reverse of universal law. Universal law, consciousness first, believe it and it shows up. What does humanity's law say? You've got to work for it. You've got to earn it. You've got to exchange something for it. You've got to put some effort in for something to show up for you. And life is not fair. Some people are blessed and lucky and some are not. All of those beliefs are just human created beliefs, this matrix of beliefs that is also operating in duality. So there are positive aspects of that. It got you to where you are, to where you could communicate the way you're communicating now. It created your religions and your institutions of learning and all of these things that got humanity to a point where you no longer need it. It's like you built a ladder out of the matrix with all of these things, and now you're exiting the matrix and you don't need the ladder anymore. You can begin destroying the ladder, and you're doing that. You're seeing examples of your destruction of your matrix all around you. Those of you that have lived a few decades, think about how much more ridiculous politics may seem to you today than they have in the past, or certainly to you than your ancestors. There was a time where the leaders of your nation and the leaders of your religion were revered, but then you started questioning, and then you start questioning, and all of a sudden the flaws start to reveal themselves. You're seeing stories of priests abusing people, and you're seeing stories of politicians being dishonest and doing unscrupulous things to stay in power. You're seeing more of that. So is there more of that occurring, or was it there all along and you're seeing with greater clarity and your willingness to exit the matrix?
Now, with all of that that's happening, are there any evil like entities or demons or things like that messing with things, or is everything part of the stream consciousness and it's this human construct that we think that maybe there's evil forces at play?
You have posed an excellent question, because what you have in the universe is source energy. That which we are, that's which is your origin. Source energy is powerful, positive, creative energy that is the purest form of what you may call love or appreciation, as we often express. That is the energy that creates the universe, creates all things. It creates Earth, brings all well being to Earth. Physical environments are polarized. And the purpose and function of polarity is to create in the physical experience, because this is just an experience that you're in that is very limited in comparison to your soul consciousness, your eternal self. In this limited experience, you are here to experience polarity. Polarity creates a separation from source. Your ego exists to separate you from source in this environment that you're very much part of, where you have preferences. There are things that you observe right away that you like innately, and there are things that you don't like innately. And so you start discerning these preferences via your ego. That's its key function. And you are going to manifest a mix of things in your lives. You all do. There is nothing that you're going to manifest that's also not going to include some challenges with it, some problems with it. And of course, being that energy operates in a spectrum, there is always going to be this spectrum from the very worst to the very best and everything in between, in your opinion. So, in the example of demonic energy or evil entities, that is what you would call the lowest vibration. That is pure ego with very little source presence. That's a lot of overshadowing of that which we are, our creative energy. And in that overshadowing, all sorts of things come into play. That's where your storms come in, and your actual physical storms in your world come from that energy. Your storms in your lives, when you have a diagnosis of some sort of illness, or when you have a financial spin out, or you have a relationship spin out, or you have a car accident or something of that nature, it's always going to be a product of your low vibrational periods that you all move through. But you all create your own unique belief systems. That's what creates the expansion of consciousness that you seek in having the experience. So there's certainly some that come forth and create a belief system where the more they harm others, the better they do, the more they benefit from it, and they create that reality for themselves. And you all look upon those and think, gosh, I'm such a good person and I'm struggling, and they are so evil and harming so many, and they have everything that they want. That's your perspective. You do not understand what it's like to be them, but at the same time, understand that spectrum of belief systems is what's required in an environment such as planet Earth to create the expansion of consciousness in the first place. If you didn't have some boogeymen, if you didn't have some monsters scaring you, you wouldn't have that low vibration experience. You come here for that. But with that said, that does not mean that it's impossible to heal that type of activity. It's not impossible to change what that low vibration can be like. But it's not about creating change on planet Earth for all of humanity simultaneously, because you're not all here on the same journey. It's about seeing with such great clarity that the one that is put out there as dark or evil expressions of energy no longer frighten you. And suddenly they're no longer dark or evil, and it stops to exist for you because your belief system is no longer fearing and judging that energy. You're understanding that it's just an absence of source. It exists within all of you to some degree, and that you all have the sovereignty over it. You don't have to allow yourselves to express that energy. You don't have to act on it. You can experience it, acknowledge it, even appreciate your dark side. You all have it, and then flow right back up in your appreciation to a higher vibration, where that higher vibration will become the birthplace of your next experience.
So, speaking of the next experience, when we die as human beings, do we all go back to this source energy? And do we all of a sudden remember like everything? Do we forget our human lives? Do we immediately come back into the human experience? What happens?
Again, this is an energetic experience. So it is something that is not a light switch where you exit your physical body, and then suddenly it all makes perfect sense. It is very different instantaneously for you, absolutely. And there are certainly some of you that begin to experience that in the near death experience and then bring a lot of that awareness back with you. And that's by design as well. But when you fully reemerge into source energy, you are a strand of that which we are. And being so, you do have knowledge of all that is. That is well beyond your human comprehension, but you do. And in that state, you are all knowing, all seeing, you are eternal, backward and forward. So you know everything. You understand everything that you've experienced in your physical lifetimes, and understand that your physical lifetimes are infinite. You never stop manifesting in physical. You may move through a journey of no longer manifesting in the earth environment because you've experienced every aspect or every vibration of the earth environment, and you all do, and then move on to something else that's more sophisticated because the earth environment has readied you to move on to something else. But in the in between state, it's not really in between because you're having all of these expressions simultaneously. It's all happening at once because it's all consciousness. Consciousness is eternal, it's not moving through linear. You're just experiencing something here as a human being on planet Earth that you are perceiving as linear, because the linear experience that you perceive is where the value of growth happens. So in your eternal state of consciousness, there is no growth, there's no expansion. It doesn't exist, but it's guaranteed because source is forever expressing ourselves as independent strands of consciousness in infinite physical environments that are all polarized. They all include challenges. There is not a utopian planet somewhere where everyone is agreeing, everyone is operating the exact same vibration, and there's no ego present, and no one wants for anything. Everything is perfection. That is how you exist eternally. But in that eternal existence, you want nothing more. We will use the term want because it's an earthly term, but for lack of a better term, you want nothing more in that eternal state than to come back and express yet again in physical because you understand the value of it.
And then another question that I think about all the time, what happens at night when we sleep and we have dreams? Are we just reliving the day subconsciously? Are we connecting spiritually with source? Are we meeting like if we have a dream about someone who's passed away, are we actually communicating with them? What can you tell me about the state of sleep and dreaming?
All of the above would be the easy answer to that, but we'll go a bit deeper in that you are absolutely expanding your consciousness beyond your 3D human experience in that state. You are operating in that eternal state of consciousness all the time. You just have this ego that's very much in gear when you're awake. When you're asleep, you sort of taken that out of gear and you're running more on an autopilot state so your physical vehicle can have the rest that it needs to recharge for the next day or the next period. And in that state of consciousness, you are a source being. You are reemerging more into that source consciousness, but your ego is still present. So your ego is the thing that is creating the visuals and the emotions for you, and that the emotion is the physical feeling of the energetic realm, and the visuals are simply a product of your belief system. So if you are highly afraid of snakes, for example, and suddenly you're stressed about something in your life and you're seeing lots of snakes in your dreams, that's simply an expression of your dominant vibration at the time, the experience that you're moving through at that time. You'll have these disruptive dreams. Notice that when you're really stressed or really happy, when you go to a more extreme pole, you will remember your dreams perhaps more because they'll be a bit more intense, because there's more energy flowing both positively and negatively during these periods for you. And your mind is going to create visuals and emotions that reflect the vibration. The same thing happens in a near death experience, or when you use a substance or deep meditation to sort of lift that veil and really allow more source energy in, when you're sort of seeing the other side of things. Your ego is still going to create the experience for you. It's sort of like it's taking all of that information and decoding it in such a way, sort of like the way that a television operates. You're getting a signal to your television one way or the other, and your television is decoding that signal and giving you a picture. That's what your mind is doing for you in your dream state. So when you dream about someone, your mind is connecting with their energy, and however you're dreaming about them is how you're connecting with them in that moment. So if you're thinking of them in a very high vibrational way of appreciation, you are going to dream about them in a light that is very positive for you. To give an example of this, David had a lot of detuning to do around his mother. His mother was very abusive to him very early on and ended up disowning him for the last 20 years of her life. She was a major transgressor for him that he needed to detune. And he understood that after many, many years of this work, he had finally authentically detuned her when she appeared to him in a dream state in a way that he knew that she would have loved to have been as her human self when he knew her. And it was nothing like her real life. But in experiencing her that way, he was not even interacting with her in the dream. He was witnessing her as if he didn't exist, because in her dream life, he didn't exist. So in her dream life, she didn't have children. In her dream life, she lived by the lake. She had a beautiful home. She had beautiful clothes. She had little dogs running around. Those were the things that she appreciated. That's not how she is in her eternal state. That's how he perceived her in the dream, understanding that this was the very best of her as he knew her. And that's how he's experiencing her now, because all of the negative aspects have been detuned.
Wow. Wow. So, okay, back to suffering. If we're going through something in the human experience, let's say there's an illness or something like that, is it really up to us as part of our spiritual journey to heal ourselves and focus on the outcome we want? Or can we ask for your help? Can we ask for source energy to come in and heal us and help us? Or are we kind of, it's like up to us? It's part of our mission and growth and evolution to figure it out on our own here on Earth.
You can always ask. Understand that your belief is creating the reality. So if you are enjoying our words, or you are enjoying your own connection to us, not necessarily via David, because you have it, and you are enjoying that, and that lights you up, and you give great reverence to that, then asking for it in belief that you will receive it, because we are the source of all creation, that is absolutely going to work for you. That's why prayer works for those that truly believe in prayer, because they have created an image of source that is a deity that they respect very much and revere very much and believe can create on their behalf. They're giving away their power, but we do not judge that. They are simply choosing an experience of believing in the deity, believing in the religion, and praying in belief that they're going to receive. So there is nothing wrong with that. If this is something that highly resonates with you, and you label what we are sharing here via David as source, or your own connection as source, and want to ask for things in belief that that's how it's going to show up, these ritualistic type things hold great power for you, because you are in a physical, action oriented environment. But understand that you are the creator of the healing. Even your physicians, your medical community by and large, will say those that believe that they will be healed and have a successful surgical experience will heal and have that experience more often than those that don't. Belief trumps. Your scientists are coming to understand this. Your medical world, certainly your militaries, understand conscious creation. This is not something that is esoteric and out there and woo woo. This is very mainstream. There are just many that don't fully understand it, so there's still a lot of ridicule around it. You all ridicule the things that you don't understand. So those of you that have sort of come out of the closet as spiritual seekers, you have to detune the concern about being ridiculed, because once you do and you fully allow that to be your mode of operation, your whole world begins to transform. That is the true exiting of the matrix. The true transformation from 3D to 5D is understanding that perfection already exists in your world for you. It's all a matter of your perspective and how you are choosing to perceive it.
Wow. Okay. And then the other thing that I think about this a lot, because I guess it doesn't fully make sense to me, but if we are talking with a medium, for example, right? And we're speaking to loved ones that passed away, are we really speaking to them, or is this just source energy coming in? Or I mean, what is that? Are we
It
able
is
to
it is
communicate?
always it is always source energy at its essence, but the medium is tapping into source energy, and not only are they tapping in perhaps via source the energy of the ones that you are looking to communicate with, they are also tapping into you and reading you. In fact, the intentionality behind many mediums work is to be in service of you as their client, or the one that they're reading. And in doing so, what is it you're looking for in the interaction, and they're looking to deliver to you what you're looking for, what they believe will help you the most. They are seeking to be authentic. Not all of them certainly, but most are seeking to be authentic in their sharing. But it is, they're bridging the gap between the energetic realm and yourself when they're doing that. And your belief in it is going to dictate your experience with it. So if you go in as a skeptic, you're going to have a limited experience. But if you allow yourself to really let go and just have whatever experience shows up and giving it the power, then you're going to have a more powerful experience.
Okay. And then something I feel like I struggle with, and you did address this, but I just want some clarity around it. So if let's say there's something going on in the world, like an injustice, right? And you feel very called to bring light to it and to like expose the truth of it. Is that focusing on what you don't want, or is that part of your journey to help others expand their consciousness? I feel like there's a fine line there, and I don't really fully understand.
There is a fine line there indeed, and this is the evolution of what's next for humanity. We are not here to predict your future for you because you're the ones that are creating it, but this is what's happening in your expansion of consciousness. You are all coming to understand that you create via thought, you create via belief. And so you're applying that in your own lives. And you're beginning to, with trial and error, see the benefits of it. Many of you are, many more will. And as you do that, though, you cannot help but have that reverberate out into every topic across all of humanity. So if you are thinking poverty and are thinking financial difficulty or thinking illness, and you're seeing more of it show up in your life, you understand how to fix that, to turn your attention to what you want and stop focusing on what you don't want. But then when you're looking at all of this information that you're fed all the time across humanity, and you're wanting to solve something on behalf of someone else, we are not judging whatever you choose to do. If you choose to demonize it and protest, there is no penalty for you doing that when you exit your physical existence. In fact, there's no penalty for anything that you do here. The penalties are all in real time for all of you. And the penalty is simply the lower vibrational experience that you create for yourselves. So in your judging something and demonizing something, you are absolutely fueling more of it. And you have evidence of this all around. You look at how many things that you all judge and demonize that keep reoccurring, that don't get
Mhm.
solved. You
Yep.
all have the power to solve anything and everything in your world and for yourselves. You do. You have the power to create it. You create all of it. So therefore, you also have the power to change it. That applies to everything in your life, everything across humanity. So if there's something that you're looking at, say you want to end all war forever, and yet it's not ending. There have been war protests as long as you have recorded history, and those protests have even intensified over the years with more information.
Mhm.
As we have stated, you have more information now than you've had, and certainly over the last 50 to 100 years, you are flooded with a lot of information with what's going on around the world that you didn't used to have access to. Now you have access. You're upset about things that are happening on other continents, halfway or all the way around the world, and you are protesting and you're pushing against, and it doesn't stop. It just keeps going because you're actually fueling it. And when you're viewing someone and stating that what they're experiencing should not be, you're also helping fuel that because you are a collective consciousness. We are not about casting fault and blame. There's no such thing in our realm as fault and blame. You're all conscious creators. You're having an experience, and there's really no right or wrong or positive and negative in our world, in our energetic realm. So the negative is simply the things that you don't want to experience and see. It's just a preference that you've all discerned, and it's natural to have those. But the only path to healing or solving anything, if you don't take anything else away from this interaction, take this, if you will, that the path is appreciation of, meaning deeper understanding of, so deep that you no longer fear nor judge. That's the key to healing and solving everything in your life and everything in your world. So the way that you do that, because we understand that you're sitting here hearing these words, thinking, how in the world do I appreciate children being murdered in this war or whatever you're thinking of?
Right.
Appreciation is not celebration. Appreciation is perhaps a better term than love. We are limited to David's vocabulary, and your English language is very limited in terms of appreciation of all that is. Notice that. There are some other languages that are older languages that have these concepts in them, but English does not have a concept for appreciation of all things. There's no word for that. You have to use a word like omni appreciation. So, in your application of omni appreciation, how do you appreciate? Well, appreciation is simply understanding that every strand of consciousness is coming to planet Earth to have an imperfect journey, and that the things that you move through that are suffering, even the things that you move through that are suffering that end your physical journey, it's just an experience that you're choosing to have. Your physical journey is not meant to be eternal. Not one of you are going to to make it out alive of planet Earth. You're all going to exit your physical vehicle one way or another, and that concept of time is in a human creation. So whether you don't make it out of the womb, or whether you make it just 2 or 3 years of life, or 30 years of life, or 100 years of life, that's all a matter of human construct. That this is right and that is wrong, that children should never die, that you should live to be a ripe old age. That is a human construct. And we will give you an example of this that will be very helpful. When you choose your point of entry, you are choosing your point of entry to planet Earth based on the expansion of consciousness experience that your soul is seeking. If the soul is seeking greater expansion of consciousness, meaning a more sophisticated experience that will move you more into the core of source energy, you are going to choose a difficult path, potentially. You're going to choose the parents that aren't ready to be parents, perhaps the abusive parents, or the drug addicted parents, or the parents that are living in a war torn country, or a member of an oppressed minority, for instance. Also, you might choose illness very early on. And the example that we're going to give you are the young children that come with terminal illness, and they live just a few years. And then when they depart, you hear the stories of what a bright light they were, what an old soul they were.
Hmm.
Very common in your world to hear this,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they are, because you are witnessing a more advanced strand of consciousness that is choosing that experience. And that's going to deliver experience, of course, for everyone around, but they have the experience. The judgment of the experience is a human construct. The judgment of life and death and what a child is supposed to be to a parent and a parent to a child is not wrong, but it is a human construct. So you've created this concept that parents are supposed to be good and love their children unconditionally and stick around and be there for their child, and the child is supposed to be healthy and happy and live this wonderful life and become educated and get out into the world and contribute and be a good person. There is nothing wrong in any of that. That is all things that you all want, and the things that you want keep you motivated through this lifetime, but you don't all get that. So the ones that don't get it have a choice. You can not get what you thought you wanted and spend the rest of your days suffering in the loss of it. And some do. And that's an experience that expands consciousness, or it can enlighten you. You can move on and say, I had this child that lived to be 5. What a bright light they were. How much I learned, and
Hmm.
become a teacher of that and make that your experience. There's expansion of consciousness in that as well. We are not judging either experience. You can have that experience and plunge in depression to become a drug addict and commit suicide at some point over it, if you so choose. There's expansion of consciousness in that. This right, wrong human path, and that, oh, that must be evil. The stream is evil, saying that it's okay to end up in suicide. It's just the clarity that you're all creating these things, and you're becoming sophisticated enough now to comprehend that, which is why you're summoning this level of consciousness through David and why you're here having this interaction. Even if it upsets you a bit, you're here listening and you're paying attention and you're connecting, and you will move away from this interaction and perhaps need to come back and listen to it a few more times, as you typically need to do with our teachings, and fully understand that that's true, that it's just a matter of perspective and opinion. And I can have the suffering experience, or I can simply choose not to suffer in it. I don't have to label anything as should not be. I can simply appreciate what was, the being that was in this example, and appreciate them and appreciate the time that I had, and make my life's journey be more enriched by that. I can choose that. And how magical that is for you.
It's almost like it's almost like this human experience is just like a game because there's no ramifications outside of this human experience for how we live, right? Like there's no
The
wrong.
ramifications are a human construct to better deal with the inequity that you perceive your lives to be. So one comes along, Adolf Hitler comes along and ends the lives of a large portion of a race of people intentionally.
Mhm.
And you label them as evil and awful and demonic and terrible and the worst ever, and they must be burning in hell for all of eternity. But they're not. They came and they had their experience. For every suffering they created, they suffered themselves. That
Mm.
was a reflection of their own suffering in the lifetime. After the lifetime, you all reemerge into source consciousness where you hold authentic appreciation for all that is, including things like that. We are not asking humanity to race toward appreciation of genocide. We are stating that your demonization of it can keep it alive in certain ways, and you see it reoccur in your world because of that. when you gain a greater understanding of what a tormented soul, meaning tormented ego, really, that being was, and how much destruction they created, but how much expansion of consciousness they created, and how much awareness of human behavior was spurned by that, and how much good has come as a result of that very dark time, and focus on that. That's where the healing is. That's where that appreciation comes in. We're choosing to understand it from a higher level, because you all have that higher level cooked into you. You all have source in you. Your ego is the thing, and your matrix of your collective matrix of beliefs that tell you you're not allowed to ever appreciate these things. That's what keeps the negative stuff going for you. But you will solve these things. And when you solve certain negative things, other negative things will bubble up for you. And we say for you because all of these negative things that happen in your lives and in your world exist because you're in a polarized environment, and you're in a polarized environment for the expansion of consciousness that it creates. How do you create? Everything that you all create, think of your 3D human creations, your housing, your transportation, your electricity, your conditioned air, your internet, all of these things that you create. It is a solution to a perceived problem. So you have a problem. You don't want to live in the wilderness. You want to be able to communicate. You want to be able to travel. You want to be able to be comfortable in your homes. You want to have food readily available. You create new things as solutions to what you do not prefer. That is expansion of consciousness. That's why you exist in physical in the first place. And that expands us. That's why we express in physical. We are guaranteed expansion in our never ending visitation to human or physical environments as independent strands of consciousness. And the physical environments are infinite, not just human, not just Earth. Earth is just one of infinite environments, and you are in the Earth experience. And when you say that it's like a game, you are indeed correct. It is like a game. It's not like a game because it's a game. It's like a game because the games that you all create are a reflection of your own experience. The technology that you create is also a reflection of your experience. And that's what humanity is doing now. You're becoming so intelligent. Not only are you seeing clearly how creation happens, you're creating technology that is the technology that creates you. You are technology. Your physical vehicle is technology. If you've studied biology at all, you have to understand that you are designed consciously. Your eyes, ears, nose, your senses, your bodily functions did not just happen. There's intelligence behind that. You don't fully know what that intelligence is in your scientific community, but they're coming to understand that is that what you call source. That is the intelligence that created you. And now you are creating machinery and artificial intelligence that is very much like you.
Wow.
That is the turning point for humanity that you're creating for yourselves, and you're all in it right now, and you're all becoming more and more aware of it every day.
That's mind blowing. You answered so many questions I had with just that last part. It's like I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around it, but at the same time, it all makes perfect sense. So thank you. That really clarifies a lot of things that I think about on a daily basis. Incredible.
We have shared quite a bit of information, and as we stated earlier, it's good practice if you resonate with these teachings to listen to this interaction over and over again, because you are correct. You have summoned a great deal of information in a very short amount of time. You have answered many questions of the universe in a very short amount of time. With much love.
A lot of deep questions.
That is what we have.
Wow. Thank you. That was
You're a
amazing.
good you're a good inquisitive host. Wow.
Well, I
I don't
mean,
always
I just
remember a whole
figured
lot, but
while
this
I
time
have
I
the
was in the background like, holy shit, she's just getting all of it. This is great.
while I have the opportunity, yeah, like I mean, I literally think about this stuff all the time. And the last part about I mean, I it's all I think about lately, and I just find it so fascinating. And then yeah, like is it just Earth? No, like this is happening. I mean, so many questions answered. This was amazing.
Well,
Really
good.
cool.
It was fun doing it because it was sort of like rapid fire. Here's the whole universe in a time frame, and even ending somewhat on time. That intentionality, and they just like
I
we're
know,
out
and
of
I didn't
here.
even come prepared with these questions. I was
We're out
just
of
like,
here. No, you did great. That was fantastic. Very impressive.
"Oh, wow. That was cool." So you're like aware of what's happening while you're streaming,
Not
right?
so I have awareness in real time. I don't usually remember it when I come back, and I'm like
Mm.
right now it's fading away already. Like I don't really
Oh,
remember
uh-huh.
everything. I just remember I was in the background thinking this is really cool. This is great information. she's summoning so much, and everyone that's listening is summoning it as well. So everything, time isn't a factor. So if this is being recorded and you're putting it out there, somebody listening 2 years from now to this podcast is still summoning the information.
Wow.
That's hard for us to wrap our heads around, but that's
Well, I
what
can
just
believe
happened.
it considering all the information that came through. I mean,
Yeah, well, your
that's like the
intentionality as
secret.
the host also guided the questions to bring all of it out. So that was really, really good. You're good at what you do.
That was so cool. This was a very, very cool experience. So now, where can everyone find you and just tune into this? And I'm
The
sure
stream
everyone's
of
going to want to
David,
know.
the stream of David everywhere. The streamofdavid.com is the website, the stream of David podcast. And I don't remember to plug stuff, but I have a book.
Yes,
The
the
Tya
Tya
practice. The
practice.
Tya practice actually takes these ideas and gives you an opportunity to actually make it your way of life if you so choose. And the whole practice, I always show how thick the book is. It's a big book. We put the whole practice in here. I've been teaching this since 2018 in a boot camp program, which I still have. And that's intense. And that's working with me as a coach. But not everybody can afford that or has the time for it. So I created the book so that everybody has access to it. The podcast, I teach it everywhere too, but the book is the whole thing with case studies and everything else. So it's all in here.
Ah, so cool. So, so cool. Um, Thank you. I really feel like I got so much out of this that I wasn't expecting. So you've blown my mind. This was amazing. You're amazing. Everyone needs to go follow you now. And yeah, maybe we can have you back again in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm on TikTok and YouTube are my two main modalities these days, in addition to the podcast and the book. And the
And it's at
audiobook's coming out
Stream
on
of
July
David.
16th. The Stream of David everywhere. We have a Facebook group called the Tya Practice, but if you go to my website, you can find all that stuff.
Awesome. David, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
It was great being on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week. If you enjoyed the episode, then pay it forward and share it with a friend. It's the best thing you can do to support the podcast and help share the law of attraction with other people. If you want more manifestation hacks, tips, and resources, then head over to my Instagram page at the Law of Attraction Tribe, or download the Manifest It Now app and check out my over 200 manifestation resources and tools. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you back here next time.